Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I'm Kirsten Howe, and I'm here alone today because I have something that I want to talk about that I think is very, very important and has not been getting much coverage in mainstream media. So, the podcasters have to pick up the slack. And what I'm talking about is some upcoming changes to Medi-Cal. I think this is really important for people who are thinking they may in the future need Medi-Cal, and particularly for people who are currently receiving Medi-Cal benefits. You all are most likely at least vaguely familiar with the big, beautiful bill that was passed this past summer by our Congress and signed into law by our president. It did a lot of things. One of the things it did was it called for reduced funding by the federal government to the Medicaid programs in all the states. In California, we call our Medicaid program Medi-Cal. So Congress has determined that they're going to start reducing federal funding to Medi-Cal. That's going to happen. That's going to play out over the next few years. We'll see how it goes. People are going to lose their Medi-Cal coverage. There's just no other way around it. That's not what I'm here to talk to you about, though. That was very well publicized. What I am here to talk to you about is a change that the state of California is making to its Medi-Cal laws. This doesn't apply in other states. This is just California. And what's happening is we are going back to having an asset limitation for Medi-Cal eligibility. Now, I'm not talking about people who qualify for Medi-Cal to pay for health insurance, to pay for doctor's visits, hospitalizations on what we call MAGI Medi-Cal. It's based on your modified adjusted gross income. That's MAGI. That's the expanded Medi-Cal coverage that we got as a result of Obamacare. And that's for healthy people who just have low income and they need help getting insurance coverage. This that I'm talking about, this asset limitation, doesn't apply to that type of Medi-Cal. That type of Medi-Cal never had an asset limit. It was only based on income. What I'm talking about is the Medi-Cal that generally is used by the elderly, by the disabled. It's Medi-Cal coverage that includes long-term care coverage, not just health insurance coverage. It includes long-term care. So people who apply for that type of Medi-Cal historically have always had to pass both an income test and an asset test. However, in 2024 in California, we got rid of the asset test. So for the last 2 years, only income was relevant in determining your eligibility for that long-term care type of Medi-Cal, the elderly disabled Medi-Cal. The asset limits are coming back. So we're going to have the same asset limits that we had in 2024. The last couple of years, we haven't had any asset limit. So people need to know that that deadline is coming up. Becoming eligible for Medi-Cal will just require more planning, more strategizing. If you have too much assets, you've got to get your assets below the level so that all your assets are exempt. And I'm just going to quickly go through what that is. For a single person, it's going to be a house, a car. You can have a prepaid funeral plan. You can have a burial plot. You can have a tiny little life insurance policy. You can have your IRAs, 401ks, and $130,000 of other assets. That's the pre-2024 limit, and that's what we're going back to, is the pre-2024 limit. It's a little different for married couples, but you get the idea. You can only have certain assets, and if you have anything more than that, you are not eligible. Okay, so a couple of really important points. Right now, in 2025, we have no asset limit, so all assets are exempt assets. Exempt assets can be transferred without penalty. You all know when you hear Medi-Cal and transfers, I know you're out there thinking possibly out loud, what about look-back periods? What about transfer penalties? Yes, those are coming back too. Right now, all assets are exempt. We don't get penalized for transferring exempt assets. So that's an important point to take away from this. The other important point, and this is really important, and this is why I'm doing this here today, because I don't think enough people realize this. When you, in 2026, if you are currently receiving this type of Medi-Cal in 2026, and you have to submit your annual report, establishing your eligibility. Again, every year when you're in Medi-Cal, you have to submit a report to the Department of Healthcare Services that explains, yes, I am still eligible. Here's my income. Here's my assets. Next year, when you submit your report, if you have excess assets, you may lose your coverage. So you may have qualified during this period when there was no asset limit, but we're going back to having an asset limit and you're going to have to disclose your assets again. You may lose your coverage. So if you are listening to this and it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't apply to you, I'm not on Medi-Cal, I really don't care, but you know someone who might need to know this information, please pass it on. The point of this is to publicize this upcoming issue that could be just devastating for people. Thank you so much for your attention, for your time, for listening. I love my audience. Share this with anybody you think might benefit. And I really look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.
This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.